It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And indeed it is Judd's Hockey Show. Welcome in trade deadline special. It is, let's see right now, 2:04 Central Time. Trade deadline passed 4 minutes ago. It's Judd, it's AJ, Jessi Pierce to join us in about 15 or so for her reaction. Keep in mind, the deadline has passed, but that does not mean all of the deals have been put through yet. So there certainly could be time for the Wild to have made a deal and for that to register. But as of right now, that is not the case.
Yeah, and I'll start off here with something that happened as we were just I want to preface, not Minnesota Wild related, but
sure.
As we were starting the show, it's being reported by Elliot Friedman that Brad Marchand could be headed to Florida on a last minute deal.
Okay, interesting.
So
that makes sense. Kachuk's out.
The
he
Wild
might be out for the season.
Many people that when you saw Wild Bruins trades percolating last night, Brazeau was not the maybe the intended target for a lot of Wild fans, so that one is trickling through here. But like you said, stuff with the deadline passed, papers have to be finalized. It kind of gets clogged up. We might get something that comes across the wire here in the coming minutes.
Absolutely, and so yes, if you didn't see the trade last night, the Wild gets Justin Brazeau, who is a big right winger, 6'6" from the Boston Bruins, and the Wild sends out Marat Hustadinov, Jacob Lauko, who goes back to Boston from whence he came, and the Wild also sends out a 6th-round pick in 2026 to Boston. As of right now, that is their move. As we talked about, this was sort of predicated on the Wild would have had a lot of room to do something if Kirill Kaprizov was going to be held out for the rest of the regular season and back for the playoffs when the salary cap no longer counts. Kaprizov is on LTIR. The Wild expecting him back. Joel Eriksson Ek, who has a broken bone in his leg, it was reported by The Athletic, is on IR, not LTIR, so his cap space not freed up, and Brodin is the same. In all three cases, though, it's very clear that the Wild is targeting those players to come back before the regular season is over, and so you cannot screw with the salary cap until it's done. All of that being said, though, let's talk about the trades that were made, the division itself, and the fact that if we get no more word of a Wild trade, I am inclined, and we've been talking about this for a while, I am inclined to agree with not doing a thing. Let's start with the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars had a big day. Dallas Stars had a huge day. The Dallas Stars, as was first reported last night, that it was close and it finally crossed the finish line this afternoon. The Dallas Stars get Mikko Rantanen, high-scoring right wing, sign him to an 8-year contract, and they send to the Carolina Hurricanes forward Logan Stankoven, 2 first-round picks, two first-round picks, 2026, 27, 2 third-round picks in 26, 27 as well. That's the return. So Carolina got Rantanen out of the division to the Eastern Conference thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to get this guy. He's a pending free agent, but we will sign him. It's all going to be great. And at the end of the day, none of that takes place. And so now back into the Central Division and potentially setting up a Rantanen Stars versus Avs first round matchup. So that trade, no question about it, strengthens the Stars. The Avalanche weren't done. Their last trade of the day is they get, speaking about from Boston, they get Charlie Coyle and a 2026 5th round pick from the Bruins. Going back to the Bruins, Eden Prairie native, former Gopher, now former Sabre, and former Av center Casey Middlestat, left wing Will Zellers, and a 2025 2nd round pick. Also, Dylan Cousins, the center, who was being tied to the Wild, a guy that it had been reported that the Wild like. He does get traded by Buffalo to the Senators, along with defenseman Dennis Gilbert and a 2026 2nd round pick. The Sabres get center Josh Norris, much to the dismay of Brady Tkachuk, who was basically crying in the locker room because they're boys, along with another defenseman by the name of Jacob Baron-Docker. So among the players that the Wild had targeted it appears that they got traded. If the Wild was not going to make a salary cap move, it was not going to happen. And then the last trade that we talked about this morning on our episode, our first of 2 today of JHSH, Brock Nelson goes to the Avalanche. The Islanders get a really good prospect in center Callum Ritchie, a defenseman who is then immediately sent to the Ducks, a 2026 first-round pick, conditional 2028 third-round pick. Avalanche, much improved, it looks like. Avalanche, much improved. Dallas, already playing great. Improved more. Wild stands pat. It looks like Brock Besser is staying in Vancouver. If I'm a Wild fan, you know what? At this point, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and we are getting the Marchand to Florida confirmed. No details other than that he's heading down south from Boston to Florida. In terms of the Central Division and the moves you just discussed, the Dallas Stars now look like an absolute unit. Like, that is a wagon. They were already a great team to begin with, and now they part ways with Stankoven and a handful of picks. And I think that right there is exactly what I think a lot of Wild fans should take note of is Mikko Rantanen. He's not a 33-year-old Brock Nelson type. This is a guy that has quite a bit of a future. A team looking to sign him to an 8-year extension immediately. Like, that's what you would be essentially doing if you were looking to trade for a Brock Besser, but you gave up a blue chip prospect who is already an everyday NHLer. 4 picks, 2 of which are first rounders. Like, this has been a complete 180 from what I feel we saw last year at the trade deadline, where it seems like you couldn't get guys out the door for pennies. Now it's, we'll take multiple first round picks, and granted, like, this is an impact player, but then they flip that right around and extend Wyatt Johnston until he's like 27 and whatever, 2030 or whenever that contract is now up. Dallas Stars immediately propel themselves into that, not that they weren't there already, but solidify cup contender status. And I'll give credit to the Colorado Avalanche for a team that maybe felt like they had to do something. We're kind of told maybe behind the scenes that Rantanen was not going to extend there or something along those lines. Not exactly sure, as it looks like Brandon Carlo is being sent from Boston to Toronto as well now. No details on that one, but they've made a pretty good set of trades here, moving Rantanen to Carolina, getting back Marty Necas. They've now acquired Brock Nelson. That's now their elite kind of second centerman on the team. Casey Middlestad out. They shore up a couple things there. Those two teams, I mean, that them with Winnipeg is now your 1, 2, 3 in the Central, I think. I don't think there's any question about that. The Wild not making moves does hurt that top 3 candidacy, but also because of what they're dealing with health-wise, it just felt like it would have been reckless to kind of make these trades in an effort to compete with these now, I think, juggernaut teams, where next year, now you have you have a first round pick, you have another year essentially to gauge prospects. Where are they part of your future? Are they not? What can you maybe decide you are willing to part with rather than right now? Because prospects go a certain length, but like Yurov, I would like to see him in person before you make a decision on if he's a future player for this team or if you can send him out. Stramel has had a little bit of bounce back year. I don't think he's living up to the first round expectations that were when he was originally selected. But you do have Zeev Buium. You expect him to eventually step in and just be a everyday NHLer. As much as some Wild fans probably are going to say, how did they just stand pat? How did they not do a thing? I think for the long run of things, this is the right decision. I'm sure it probably killed Bill Guerin to an extent, having to I can't trade seven picks. I can't do all this stuff. I think it's going to pay off in the long run because these two teams in your own division have now propelled themselves to I'm not going to say different stratosphere, but a much clearly higher level than what they were a mere 24, 48 hours ago.
And speaking of the Jets, they did make 2 big acquisitions today. They get winger Brandon Tanev from Seattle for a second-round draft pick. They get defenseman Luke Schenn, who was actually sent from Nashville to Pittsburgh yesterday. Pittsburgh said, "We like you. We want to keep you." And Luke Schenn said, "Screw you. You're rebuilding." And so Pittsburgh gets back a second-round pick in 2026, a fourth-round pick in 27. And so, yes, the Jets improved. Colorado improved for sure, and Dallas improved. The addition of Rantanen is incredible. You know what's funny is the Wild had a fix here. I mean, Eriksson Ek's got a broken leg. You could have easily shelved him until the playoffs, and you're not even sure if he's going to come back in the playoffs and play. So I think the self-restraint was actually not doing that. And the self-restraint was because they got to know if these guys come back, as we talked about this morning, they got no idea. They have no clue if these guys are going to be, Kirill Kaprizov could come back for a period and tap out. Eriksson Ek did this. He did this very thing. He broke a bone in his leg 2 or 3 years ago, tried to come back for the playoffs. In that case, he had blocked a shot at Pittsburgh, and he checked out. So the restraint was not doing that, but if that was the restraint, I actually like it. And if you're a Wild fan and you're frustrated, look at what's going on here, because the Avalanche and the Stars are trading future assets. They're trading away things. And at the right time, I agree with it. I agree that there are times to make these trades. Mm-hmm. For this team right now, though, I think it would have been irresponsible, in part because I will go back to pounding the drum on what I've been saying, which is I don't think that you have any idea that Kirill Kaprizov, Jules Eriksson Ek, or Jonas Brodin are going to come back and be back. They might come back, but they might not be. They might break down again very quickly. I mean, think about this one. In the case of Eriksson Ek and Brodin, the amount of injuries, and now it's becoming a lifetime achievement thing. I mean, I love Ek, but my God, he has been hurt now, and it's the style of play. But there are questions there. There's questions for the future about both of those two. Hopefully Kirill is fine. But yeah, I think that the decision not to LTIR them, which would have made it possible to get a Brock Nelson, a Brock Besser, I think that decision is probably the smartest move, because of the fact that if you start to trade away your assets, if you start to trade away your prospects at this point, and you look at what Colorado is doing, you look at what Winnipeg is doing, and you look at what Dallas is doing in particular, and you say, I think that we can win a Stanley Cup this spring, I think you're smoking something that's really good, but is impairing your judgment on what you can do in June of 2025.
Yeah, and I'll throw back this comment up from Ben, who is in the chat right now. This is exactly what it is. In a year, 2, 3, the Wild's window is opening right now. They're in the room, if that makes sense. They're not at the actual wall trying to prop open the window, letting a breeze in. I think it also maybe speaks to the medical staff has clearly, I think, told Bill Guerin, hey, these guys are coming back. They will be back in time before the playoffs. Which is that I don't know if I even feel like that's still realistic, because obviously we saw Alex Ovechkin break a bone in his leg, and now he's back and he looks like he's younger than ever, gliding around in his office, putting up goals every single night. But you're right. It would have been an easy solution, and they had the out. You have guys injured, the chess pieces were there. They just didn't pull the trigger. So I think that probably speaks to, one, the restraint and the logical aspect, because as much as I think the Wild Bill Guerin nickname, sometimes it feels like it's true at times, but he's also willing to put the gun back in the holster. He's willing to, okay, let's survey our options here. And clearly him, his team, Craig Leopold probably had a discussion saying, look, we're seeing what these other teams are doing. These are major moves. Are these moves that we feel we're going to make, that we're going to have to pay a lot for, really going to be what gets us over that hump this year? They've talked about a 5-year plan. Leopold said there was zero pressure on Bill Guerin at the start of the year. And now it's I've seen people say, why don't the Wild tank then? Well, the problem is they don't have their first round pick because of the David Jiricek trade. So missing the playoffs only benefits the Columbus Blue Jackets at this point. So you're in a weird spot. It kind of fits into that mediocrity, state of hockey thing narrative that has been around the Wild for a while now. But this really feels like the final chapter of that book, where you're getting 14.7 million ish back after this season, because there's going to be I think a little over $1 million still spread out over the next couple of years. You're getting all of that back. You're going to be able to make a splash. Now you have first rounder, you have prospects. This is going to be a very tough couple of months, but once July free agency hits, I feel like you're turning a major page in the Minnesota Wild franchise history. Like, then it's, now you're a contender. Now your playoff window to make it to the second, third, fourth round, make it to that final. That's where you're really going to start seeing that come free agency this year. If guys get healthy, this team, we saw how good they were at the start of the year. I'm not saying they can't win the cup. I've seen crazier things happen. The LA Kings, I think their first time winning the cup since whatever, when they did the every other year for a couple of years, they were I want to say the 8th seed in, and they upset, and then they upset, and it was like game seven. They just kept winning. They kept defying odds. So it can't never happen. Like, teams are able to do that. If you're not healthy, making a big move to hope that you're going to be able to get in, and now that's the case, just feels very, very impulsive, non-rational thinking. So as mild and unsatisfying as some people may think this deadline is for the Wild, you're going to look back a year from now and say, I'm so glad they didn't make it.
And the thing too is, so keep in mind, on July 1st, you can extend Kirill, who will be going into the last year of his contract right now in 2025-26. You want to get that done. Like, I would, it's been made clear, and I know that the fact that he's missed all but 3 games since December 22nd is a huge bummer, but it's been made clear the Wild has put a priority on that. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is a decision, one way or the other, is going to have to be made on Marco Rossi. And so at the end of the day, what Craig Leopold said in his meeting with the media during the preseason, when he referred to July 1st as Christmas, was the reality is they can sign probably 1 or 2 guys. Like, if they keep their current guys, if Kaprizov is signed, if Rossi stays, if you look at this, like, salary cap room is increasing, and that's awesome. But it definitely disappears fairly quickly. So, we're talking about on July 1st, if you could announce a Kaprizov extension and 1 big signing, and your desire is to keep Marco Rossi, that's probably what you're going to do. And so it's not like you have boundless bundles of cash now where you're going to go throw it around and bring in this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy. So you do have to be strategic. You do have to be careful. And look, quite frankly, right now in the Central Division, you've got 3 teams that are all probably within, I don't know, take your pick. They're top 10 candidates to win the freaking Stanley Cup. And you ain't one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I would say Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado now are all probably in that. I think I would put the Jets still above the Avs. But long story short, you are in a division now where 3 teams, and 2 of them, or 1 of them, is probably going to be knocked out in the first round. So I actually think as the day progressed, it became easier to look at that and to say, oh, okay, we see where this is trending. We actually like the fact that our competitors are trading first-round picks and some prospects. But just to go back to July 1st, free agency should be fun. The main priority, though, I do firmly believe is going to be a Kirill Kaprizov extension, not an outside player. An outside player is a goal, but Kaprizov is priority 1 unless his injury has changed that. And we have heard nothing to indicate that that's the case.
One quick thing, and then I have a question based off the Mikko Rantanen extension for you and how that maybe affects the Kirill Kaprizov hopeful extension for the Wild. But did you have Shea Weber being a part of a trade on your trade deadline bingo card today?
Oh, he always is. He was with Vegas, right?
Chicago. He was technically with Chicago.
Okay, yeah, he's been dealt around.
Victor Soderstrom and Aku Ratzi to Utah for a 2026 6-rounder. And then Boston just acquired Henry Yokoharu from the Buffalo Sabres for terms unknown.
Shea was with he was not with Vegas. He was traded to the Coyotes a couple of years ago. That's what it was. And now he's on the books in Chicago, which I absolutely love. It's hilariously funny.
It's amazing. He just never goes away. So Mikko Rantanen today traded and extended for a 8-year, $12 million AAV extension with the Dallas Stars. how do you feel? I saw some people asking about this on the hockey Twitter universe today after that was announced. Do you feel like that impacts anything for the Kirill Kaprizov extension? I think if anything, that just says you can't go under 14 for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, first of all, I thought it was a little bit low for a guy of his talent. I think if he took himself to market on July 1, he gets more than that contract. 8 years. I bet I would have said if he takes himself to market, he gets at least 14. It's 12, right? Correct?
Yes. Yeah. 8 years,
It's
12 million a year.
Yeah, 8 times 12. I would have guessed that if he had become a true unrestricted free agent, he gets 8 times 14. I think it brings down Kaprizov's, what I assumed, a little bit. I think, again, I hate to say this because she's going to join us soon. I think Jessi Pierce is now it's more in her ballpark on Kirill. Now, but his camp could say, hey, we don't care. We want what we want, right? So it's still going to be, it could be, I don't want to say contentious, but it could be that his camp is going to say, we don't care what Rantanen took. But that being said, just first blush, yes, it impacts, because, I mean, we talked about, what, 17 or 18? Because the cap's going up. Now, the issue, though, is where the Rantanen thing surprises me is not that the cap is going up a little bit more next season. It's where it's going to ideally end. Here's my conspiratorial theory, though. You know, the CBA, so the league basically projected the cap to go up, up, up now, right? But if you look at it, the CBA, which is being worked on right now, I think, which is a good thing. The CBA ends during the term of what the league is like, hey, by the end of it, the salary cap's going to be out of control. It's going to be great. And I wonder if that is behind closed doors, if that is factoring in. In other words, it's not really going to go up as much as we said, but we're making it sound good right now. Because, I do think it probably impacts the Wild starting point with Kaprizov. I just don't know. I mean, Craig Leopold stood there and said, we will make him the highest paid player. Well, if that's the case, and someone calls and says, well, okay, cool. 8 times 15. Are you going to say, but the Rantanen contract,
Yeah, and that's where we'll have to see. I feel like they're going to use that as like a, hey, let's keep in mind what he just signed for. But your point that has been for the past, I think, couple of months now, which is you look at what Connor McDavid probably signs. Like, I think there's a discussion there where do they want to get that out of the way earlier or after, wait till afterwards? Because if McDavid follows the Jessi Pierce, who I'll actually bring in now, if we're good.
We got her?
No, I think so. Jessi, do you hear us? Oh, I'll pop her out here. We'll might have to fix that microphone a little bit, but her thing, which has been, you can't win the Stanley Cup with just 2 guys taking up that much salary cap. There we go. If they want to wait until after, maybe he does a Edmonton friendly deal in a sense for what Connor McDavid is, then the Wild are going to benefit off that. But if he just says, no, I'm Connor McDavid, I'm the best player ever, he's going to sign a massive amount, and then Kirill's camp is like, yes, exactly. And we are Connor McDavid to Minnesota Wild. So we'll have to see. Let's see if I can
give it another shot. Give it another shot.
Let's see. Jessi, are you here? Jessi. Nope.
No, we still can't hear her.
Still can't hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello? Hello? No, no.
Is that your trade deadline review? Just big thumbs down?
Computer problems? I wonder what the problem is here. It always works.
Oh, incredible. We never have these issues, ladies and gentlemen. This is a flawless company that we work for.
Well, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we'll have to see. I think that does at least start conversations and kind of will plant a certain figure in people's minds, especially with this extension. But I see people kind of say, which is the big thing about Dallas and a few like Vegas, for instance, but it's the income tax, the state income tax. So that 12 million, in a sense, he has more take home than compared to if he signed with the Wild. I would like to think that if I was an NHL player, as somebody who's never signed anything close to $12 million a year, like I feel like I would be able to forego that and just realize, okay, I want to play for a place because they want me and I'm going to sign this massive amount. But
Carolina did too.
In Carolina
would have paid him. What's really weird is the Rantanen contract. I think Colorado would have paid. That's what's really weird about this whole thing. Keep in mind, according to all the reporting done, the Avalanche assumed that Rantanen would be too expensive. They never told him, and they traded him completely by surprise. And now we look at 8 times 12, and I'm like, I think Colorado would have paid you, dude. You're going to just stay there. And now, my God, if we get a first-round Rantanen Stars v. Avs, the gloves are going to be freaking off. It's going to be incredible. So the whole thing is weird. But I am curious, July 1st is going to be really intriguing when we start to see the price points, right? Because there's going to be a lot of things. Again, the league can say the salary cap's going up, but then you're like, okay, until you get a CBA done, you can say whatever the hell you want. It's not necessarily the truth. So July 1st, when we start to see the figures and the AAV, it's going to be super intriguing. And it's also going to be intriguing how quickly the Wild can or will attempt, because I think it'll be pretty quick, to get Kaprizov done. Because, are they going to try to get him done on the first day of the extension? If I'm not mistaken, July 1st is also the first day that McDavid can get a contract done. Yes. And is he going to wait and see? Because, we could be, there's some steam behind these agents of a McDavid might be looking for 18 a year, 19 a year. Now, there does become the whole salary cap thing, though, of do you want to win or get paid, like you said. So, there's just a lot of questions here. But I think today at least gave us a little bit of a preview of where things might go. And your state income tax thing, what is it? Florida, no state income tax. Texas, Las Vegas. Does Arizona have one? I don't know about that. But anyway.
Well, they don't have a team, so I guess that doesn't matter as much now.
Yeah, but when they did, I don't remember.
No,
the point is,
I'm pretty sure they did not. So they were a part of it.
Okay. So yeah, you have an inherent advantage of paying guys less, but them actually, if you go play for the Kings, bye-bye as far as the taxes go. You are paying, federal and state out the wazoo. So that's a good point.
What do you think about this comment from Mark? And I have a couple thoughts on this, but Mark says Wild gave up this year. How do you feel about that statement? Is there a truth there? Do you feel like they have enough excuses to maybe say, look, we just kind of had our hands tied? What do you feel?
I don't feel like they gave up because their best player's been out since December 22nd. Look, I firmly believe, if Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Brodin were healthy, you would simply have no cap space, which, by the way, we all knew. But I also, as I said, if they had wanted, they could have sidelined 2 to 3 players and gone and gotten guys. But when you think about the word give up, okay, let's take that on its face. Did they give up? Well, one, I don't think they have a chance in God's green earth to win a Stanley Cup. And so, no, I would say there have been despicable Wild teams before. There have been teams that I don't like, that I do think quit, that I do think that you just can't embrace. This is a Wild team from Garrett on down. One, they got off to a great start. Surprised everyone. Don't forget, I didn't pick them for the playoffs. Jessi.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear it? Yes, perfect.
I opted for the mobile device.
That's fine.
I apologize if it's less than stellar, but hi.
You're fine. Hi. Your thoughts on the Avs going crazy, the Stars going absolutely bonkers, and most importantly, the Wild making one small trade last night and saying nighty-night.
Weird. Absolutely bizarre on the Minnesota Wild's part. It feels still very much like it was a cap move to get rid of Murat Husnidinov and Jakub Lauko, right? I'm okay with parting ways with those players too. I don't have an affinity. I'm not like a lot of fans who get attached to these fourth liners, right? I don't understand it. It just doesn't seem like you yielded much in return. And then I've been playing a lot of Mario Kart lately, and I tweeted this out. It feels like the Dallas Stars now have this superstar that's going to quite literally the little power up, right? They're going crazy. Now you got Colorado, who currently in the wild card spot has the red shells and can just pew, 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 take out everybody in front of them. And so Minnesota's probably going to fall into a wild card spot at this point. It's unfortunate to be in the Central. I think Colorado overpaid for Brock Nelson. You hope that they learned from Carolina and got a contract extension in the midst of that, because as you can see, Carolina 2 years in a row now has made this mistake, first with Jake Gensel, now with Mikko Rantanen, unable to do that. But all in all, I'm very curious to hear what Bill Guerin says as about how he feels. I liked the Gustav Nyquist acquisition made earlier on, right? It just, this one, I don't know much about the kid. And for a fourth liner, I guess he was playing third line in Boston, fine. But I'm just very curious as to what the reasoning, what I'm missing from this. You have more money going into the summer, I guess, maybe. I don't know. Really, I don't really understand.
And why did you throw in a 6th round pick? I will say that. I was like, why throw in a draft pick?
Yeah, it seems very odd. It's just an odd, like yesterday it built up as we were discussing in our group chat, like there's something more. He's going to be doing something. So it had me glued to my phone all day like an a-hole, right? Like I was like, oh, there's going to be more going on. And there was nothing. It was nothing. Like all that stress and anxiety or possible excitement just kind of pithered away. And it's always hard. Trade deadline can be like that, right? You see what other teams are doing and you salivate at the idea of what you could do. It's an odd move from Bill Guerin and company, I think. Odd moves, rather.
I just don't have a problem. So, yes, I agree on the Boston move. I don't have a problem, though. Like, and as I saw what the Stars add, firepower, for sure. The Avs, and to your point, at some pretty hefty prices, I don't have a problem with standing pat. Like, and I do think that they sniffed around Besser and Nelson for sure. And I will say this, they, as I told Age, Jess, they had the out. Like if they wanted to, they could have LTIR'd Eriksson Ek and Brodin and with Kaprizov there said, you're all out until the playoffs start. And then you can go get guys. But I almost like the fact that they didn't. Because like right now, among the favorites to win a Stanley Cup in the entire league, right? The Jets are there. I think Dallas is there for sure. And the Avs are at least creeping in or there. So I like, if Bill Guerin was ever going to get somewhat conservative, I think he picked the right time. The Boston trade aside, which there must be more to that. Like the Hustadinov thing is weird a little bit. But I do think from a big picture perspective of, hey, right now is not the time to trade your young talent, that Guerin did the right thing, which I'm guessing pained him greatly, because he strikes me as a guy that probably looked at all the, the fur flying today and thought, oh my God, I'd love to make a trade like that, but he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, he sat on the sidelines, which I think kills him as much as it kills Kirill Kaprizov to be on the sidelines right now. I am very curious as to the Joel Eriksson Ek. Like, we all have speculated about, should Kirill be on the LTIR? Should he come back? My sources told me today that Ek is on crutches as of right now. So I don't know that return is going to be in the regular season. I just don't get the sense that is very imminent. Now, certainly Joel Eriksson Ek is a guy that doesn't need maybe as much of a runway as Kirill tends to, because you go back to last year, Kirill needed time to get back into playoffs. So hopefully Kirill does come back sooner rather than later so he gets those games. And this man has not been skating for months at this point by the time he comes back. So he's going to need that runway. So not moving them, I love the faith. It just seems silly to me a little bit. Like it just seems kind of crazy. Again, more on the Joel Eriksson Ek side, because learning that, and because as we discussed in this week's episode, Kirill is a guy that I can see Bill wanting to make happy, and Kirill doesn't want to be told that he's not coming back in the regular season. So that one I don't get, but Joel Eriksson Ek sounds like it's going to be longer term. So to put him on LTIR and go get something else. But then again, maybe Bill Guerin found out things were more expensive, as we saw with the Brock Nelson. Players were needing more. And you don't want to overpay at this point when he's ready to spend come the summer too.
Dan, I'm going to butcher this. It's like Riccio, Riccio. He covers the Canucks, and he has a quote from Patrick Alvin, GM of the Canucks, who says, quote, "If I told you what I was offered for Brock Besser, I would have run out. I would have to run out of here because you would not believe me." That's it. That's the report. That's the quote. Do you feel like that is incredible lowballs, or I take it as so much was thrown his way that if he says what was offered, he left picks, players, prospects on the table, he would get run out of Vancouver?
I take it on the higher end. Yeah, like he was thrown a ton for Brock Besser.
Why wouldn't
because
you make
Brock
the trade
Besser,
then?
Are they convinced that they can extend him then? I'm so confused.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because I think Vancouver's in a position where you did feel like they'd be more on the selling side of things, especially as Quinn Hughes continues to be out. It's curious. It's very curious. Vancouver's a hot dumpster fire, right? Like Elias Pettersson aside, like there is a whole lot of problems going on there. So it is interesting. It'd be weird to feel that they got lowballed. I mean, certainly if people came in last minute, but
well, he follows up because somebody says, "Is it context? Are you saying they were like he got offered a lot?" And he says, "No, they were bad. I guess he got bad offers on Brock Besser."
Okay.
So that makes more sense. But
that seems a little bit odd, but I guess they probably asked for the world and didn't get that. And Jessi, last thing from me, I do think we have to consider the fact too, though, that while we're assuming that Eriksson, Kaprizov, Brodin all come back before the regular season ends, I wonder if there's some, rightfully so, some fear that they don't know, like if they're coming back and when they do come back, like because we saw 3 years back, right? Ek broke his leg, tried to play in a playoff game, played a shift, and left the ice. And so I wonder if part of this, too, is a hesitancy to try to beef up a roster that they're not quite sure. Like if Kaprizov comes back at 50%, X at 20%, so there might just be the realization that those guys aren't going to be really good to go. And if they're not, then I agree more with doing nothing, because you're not going to overcome what the Stars, Avs, and Jets did through like, hey, let's go get a couple of guys and Kaprizov won't play. So I just think the Wild's they're at an odd spot, but I also think the timing of this is far preferable to like a year from now when it would be a big bummer.
Yeah, I mean, conservative is fine, especially with the position that they're in right now. And I do think Bill Guerin was genuine when he spoke to us last Sunday saying, I don't know. I can't tell you guys 17 days because I don't know if it's going to be 17 days and you guys take it and run with it. So, I mean, I think to his credit, he was trying, or as you've said, he's not trying to lie to us or deceive us necessarily, but he doesn't know. Heading into this, I wanted a bottom six forward, which you got in the Boston trade. And Gustav Nyquist has moved up. And Minnesota has been so good at that next up mentality this year through these constant injuries. That's okay. It just still seems very interesting to me. We've talked about Marco Rossi's extension, right? And what that might look like. Is this an effort to maybe go against what I've been thinking and save a little bit more money for a Marco Rossi and get that extension done too? I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense, because the moves that were put in place weren't necessarily moves that build you up for a deep run in the playoffs. They are moves to get you into the playoffs and continue to stay course, right? That's about it. I don't see these moves as ones that are all of a sudden like, okay, we're all in, especially as you mentioned, going up against the other contenders in the West right now, or let alone in the division. It's just not going to happen. But you can weather the storm for no matter how long those three guys are out, and also save a little bit of money. I think now that I'm saying this out loud, that might have made sense. Yep, that's what I told Bill to do. For the record, as the assistant to the assistant, this is okay.
Hey, but by the way, I saw a report that Eriksson has a broken bone in his leg, which is why he's on crutches. And John Hines on the trip said, we don't know, like there was no defining, like we didn't see him break his leg. He didn't take a shot. It might just be a wear and tear thing. So keep that in mind when they're going to the Olympics next year. Sitting out, I couldn't play in the last game for my team, but the Four Nations, I'm all in. Oh, my leg hurts now. Just keep in mind that Eriksson might be lost because he didn't take a 2-week break like we all told him to, or at least I did. So I just want you to know that. My frustration, higher than ever. My blood pressure, out of control. But we appreciate your appearance.
Are you going to, if you're the commissioner of the NHL, do you have the Four Nations again then?
I don't have any of this in February, but they're going to say the ratings are good because of that. The Four Nations, which is going to turn back into the World Cup, is a preseason tournament. But the ratings won't be as good, and so the league won't care. Like, we're hearing nobody rip this. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk might not play again this season. Matthew freaking Tkachuk, defending Stanley Cup champions because he went on a 2-week frat boy, let's play hockey and fight and drink some beers thing. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, Jessi, we have to run. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week. AJ, thanks. I'm Judd. Let's all calm down, take a deep breath, and never play a series like that again in the middle of the season.